Hello, this is Pete Luce, hypnotherapist, working in Exeter and Plymouth. My website is phobiahelp.net, and here's another of my regular videos, which are intended to generally to educate the public on the subject of hypnosis and hypnotherapy and psychotherapy generally helping you to sort out what's in your head. Today I'm going to talk about a problem that I used to help a lot of people with years ago, but which I now choose not to deal with at all in my face-to-face practice. But still know quite a bit about it, and that's why I'm making this podcast. So the problem I'm talking about is smoking. And 30 years ago, about half the people I saw wanted hypnosis to help them to stop smoking. Nowadays, I get very few people approach me with that problem, and those who do, I tell them no, that's not something I deal with, because I prefer to specialise in the areas I'm really interested in. So this video is not advertising. It's not to get you to come and see me to have hypnosis for stopping smoking. But it may help you to help yourself. So what I always do is I always ask people who say they want to stop smoking, I always ask them a few questions. There's about 10 questions. And if you are contemplating stopping smoking or thinking that you ought to, I would suggest that you ask yourself these questions before you go and see any kind of therapist, let alone spend any money. So the first question is this the right time for you to stop smoking? I always start with that one because I had a lady who came to see me about 25 years ago, and the first thing she said was, I've chosen the worst possible time to stop smoking. Now 25 years ago I knew a lot less than I know now. If I'd have seen that lady today, I'd have said, well, when will be a better time? And whatever the answer was, I'd have said, okay, put a note in your diary, come back to me then. Okay, but I ain't going to see you now, for obvious reasons. Yeah. If the reason it's a bad time to stop smoking, for example, you're having a load of building work done on your house, that's stressful for anybody, especially women for some reason. They really don't like it. Or you're coming up to an important exam or a job interview, or there's a particular crisis going on in your workplace, or an interpersonal problem, you're not getting on with your partner or something like this. For heaven's sake, don't pile more trouble on yourself by deciding to stop smoking in the middle of all that. It's just crazy. Okay. There is always going to be a better time. Okay, but you should aim for that better time to be sometime within the next 6 months. Okay, don't just use that as an excuse to put things off forever. There's never going to be a perfect time for you to stop smoking. But if now is a really, really bad time to try and stop, then just don't. Okay, just wait a bit and use that time to plan. Use that time to ask yourself the next few questions and also to do the preparatory exercises, which I'm going to finish up with. So the second question, what do you enjoy about smoking? What does smoking do for you? Because for sure, you're not smoking now for the same reason as why you started smoking, okay? On average, people start smoking nowadays about the age of 14, okay? And 14-year-olds almost all smoke for the same reason, which is that it looks cool when you're that age, okay? You think it's cool to smoke. It's what the cool people do. It's what the big people do. It's what the older kids do. It's what the tougher kids do as well, very often. And so it's cool to smoke when you're that age. Nobody thinks it's cool to smoke when they're 30. I mean that would be pathetic, wouldn't it? Okay, So people go on smoking for completely different reasons to why they started. So why are you smoking now? What do you enjoy about smoking? Now, in most cases, people will say, well, it relieves stress. That's the main thing. And I'll get onto that later. Well, in fact, I'll get onto it now. Why do you think that smoking relieves stress? So I don't know, but just when I'm stressed, I just light up and I feel myself calm down. You see, when you draw it in, and yes, you do calm down. It's not what's in the cigarette that calms you down. Okay, what calms you down is the way you breathe when you smoke, that you draw in and then you slowly exhale, you slowly breathe out. And it's that slow out breath that is actually calming you. Okay, it's something that I do all the time whenever necessary. It's the absolute key to regulating your own emotions and your own mind and body is your breathing. Okay, and you do not need to smoke in order to breathe better. I'll get onto that at the end. Why do you want to stop now? Third question. Why now? Okay, every now and again I have some really sad calls from people, and you might not believe this, but people have actually called me and said, I need to smoke, or my partner needs to smoke, because I've got terminal cancer, or terminal lung cancer. Okay, I've actually had this, so I want to stop. And do you know what terminal means? Yeah, it means you're going to die. There's nothing the doctors can do for you. Well, they can make you more comfortable, but it can't cure you. That's what terminal means. It's too late. Yeah, it's too late. So maybe there's more sensible things you could be doing with your time. I don't know. Different people have different ideas though, don't they? Some people might just think, okay, I'm going to die, but I want to die in the best possible place. But it's still incredibly sad when somebody leaves it that long to stop smoking, that they actually don't stop smoking until it's already killed them. Yeah, they're still walking about, but they've got a terminal illness. The end is in sight. So that's not a good reason to stop, really, in my opinion. You want to stop smoking before it's damaged you. That's the clever thing. Yeah, that's the clever approach. Don't let it do you any permanent harm. Okay, escape from its clutches before it's got that far. Fourth question, does the idea of never smoking again ever, when you think about it, and just think about it for a minute, think about never ever smoking again for the rest of your life. How does that feel? Does that feel really scary? Or does it feel just impossible? If the idea scares you, what is it that you're afraid of? What is it that really worries you about the thought of never ever smoking again? Is it that you won't know how to deal with stress? Is it that you think you'll put on a huge amount of weight? Is it that you think your friends won't like you anymore? These are the kind of things you need to think about. And none of those things are good reasons to go on smoking. But it's just that they determine what plans you're going to need to make, okay, before you stop. Fifth question, how hard or easy do you think it's going to be? Now, the ideal answer would be somewhere in the middle. Yeah, if you actually think it's going to be just incredibly difficult to stop smoking, it's going to be the most difficult thing you've ever done in your life. Obviously, you're setting yourself up for failure. You're talking yourself into failure, aren't you? Yeah. is when you think about it, the vast majority of smokers have already given up. You know, when I was a kid, half the population smoked. 60% of men smoked. Doctors would smoke in their office when they're seeing a patient. They'd have a fag in their mouth. You know, nurses would. Most nurses used to, or a large proportion of nurses used to smoke when I started nursing. Nowadays, it's down to I think it's about 13% of adults that smoke. So, quitting smoking isn't that hard, is it? So many tens of millions of people have succeeded. However, if you imagine it's going to be really, really easy to stop smoking, then why are you calling a professional person to help you? You know, if it's that hard, why didn't you just do it? You know, if you think it's going to be that easy, you're setting yourself up for failure, because you're going to be bitterly disappointed when you realise that actually it's, you know, it is a little bit difficult. Yeah. So, and by the way, when I say it's going to be a bit difficult to stop smoking, however you try and do it, I don't care if you just do it on your own, by your own willpower, or you use some medication like nicotine patches, or you see a hypnotherapist. Whatever you do, you'll still have to make an effort for yourself. Okay? And any hypnotherapist that tells you that you'll stop smoking effortlessly, or all you need to do is pay him £300 for an hour's work, you should steer clear of that therapist. Okay, because they're pulling your leg. Sixth question: have you ever tried to stop before? And if so, how long did you last? And what led you to go back to smoking? Okay. The huge majority of smokers who come and see a therapist for help have already tried to stop several times. As Mark Twain, the famous American writer, said, he said, quitting smoking is easy. I've done it hundreds of times. Yeah. You can quit smoking hundreds of times, but if every time you go back, you relapse, you go back to smoking, then obviously you've got nowhere. Okay. What you want to do is quit smoking once, and then just leave it at that. Don't go back. Okay. Do you only smoke tobacco, or do you also smoke cannabis? It's amazing that some people think that it doesn't matter. It's both smoking, isn't it? You know, smoking weed, smoking ordinary cigarettes. That's crazy. Cannabis is a psychoactive drug. It's a very powerful psychoactive drug, especially nowadays. It's much more powerful than it was, you know, when I was at school. You know, the quality of what's in the plant, in the weed, is different. It's been bred to be more powerful, basically, and actually has quite a different effect. So, especially if somebody smokes weed, I always ask, okay, for how long have you been smoking weed in any substantial quantity? Now, if they say since I was 14, that person has gone through their entire adolescence and their entire adult life as a stoner, basically. They have used cannabis to, as it were, sort of take the edge off their emotions for the whole of their adult life. And what that means is that they have never learned to deal with those experiences just by the strength of their own mind. They've always had that little help from the spliff. And that means that without it, they've now got to deal with all those things on their own. Okay? And they're going to have to learn how to manage their own feelings in a way that they've never done before, because it's been done for them by the drug. So if those people imagine that they're going to just have one session of hypnosis or anything else, they'll be fine, they are sadly mistaken. Okay. Now those people definitely ought to stop. They ought to stop smoking, but I'm saying it's going to be quite a big project for them that they need to really sit down and think about and plan how they're going to do it and what help they're going to get. Question 8, how many per day and when do you most feel the need to smoke? Okay, the second part of that question is much more important. I've known people who smoke 40 a day and then they just gave up like that without any help at all. And I've known other people who smoked 5 a day and yet they needed to see a therapist to help them let go of those last 5 cigarettes. Okay, it's the, you might say, the one question I used to ask people when I did used to see smokers is, if you only had 5 cigarettes a day, when would you smoke them? And if you only had 1 cigarette a day, when would you smoke that cigarette? Okay, that's the really important cigarette. Yeah. And you'll generally find that that cigarette has something to do with stress management. Another question. What else are you do? When do you smoke? What else are you doing whilst you're smoking, or what have you just been doing when you smoke? Okay, so some people smoke after a meal, after sex. Some people smoke, and that's because those things already relax them, and so they associate smoking with relaxation because they're relaxed already, because they just had a big meal or they just had sex, and their blood has all been diverted to different parts of their body away from their brain, and that just sort of de-stresses you. Okay, it's not the cig that's doing it, but they think it is. Other people, they smoke, for example, on their way to work. Okay. And then they have another quick one in the car park or whatever outside, just outside the workplace entrance before they go in. And then those people as well, they'll have a cig break on a regular basis. They'll pop outside. I've got to pop outside for a cig, which means they get extra breaks from the working environment. I used to work in a place that's actually a detox clinic. And most of the staff, if you were looking for them, the first place you'd go was the back porch, because that's where people smoked, and that's where you would find them. And it was addiction clinic as well. And yet most of the staff were addictive smokers. Not a good look, in my opinion. And that comes to the 9th question. Are you using smoking to relieve some other problem? Are you basically using smoking as a medicine to relieve stress or anger? That's a dangerous one. Yeah. Because if you need the cigarette to stop yourself flying into an uncontrollable rage, and if you're a man and you have a partner, and especially if you have small children, then I'm telling you now, do not stop smoking, right? Do not stop smoking until you have discovered and become skilled at some other way of controlling your emotions, of reducing your levels of inappropriate anger. Okay, and raging at a small child is always inappropriate. Okay, if you don't understand that, you've got a serious problem. Okay, now if the only way you can stop yourself from flying into a rage is by smoking, then for God's sake, carry on smoking. Okay, because this involves other people, not just yourself. But I would say again, don't go on smoking forever. Find a way to control that emotion, to control your inappropriate anger, and get really good at it. And then you'll find it easy to stop smoking, comparatively easy to stop smoking, and everyone will be happy. I've known people who, where the relatives actually had to persuade them to resume smoking because they'd become so unbearably unpleasant to live with, having stopped smoking but not put anything in its place. Okay. Final question. If you have a partner, wife, husband, whatever, do they smoke? And if so, will they go on smoking in front of you? And if the answer is yes, 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 then you've got a problem. Because for one thing, you're going to be constantly tempted, taunted almost, by just watching somebody enjoying their cigarette, which you can't do. The main thing is, what does that say about your relationship? You're stopping smoking because you've realised that smoking is like really, really bad for you, and it's really harming you. What is smoking? It's a very slow, inefficient method of committing suicide, actually. Yeah, smoking kills about half the people who do it. It's the only drug that, when used correctly, will still kill you. Okay, if you take heroin in like ordinary medical doses, using clean needles and an uncontaminated supply, it's not going to kill you. Heroin addicts die from accidental overdose and from diseases that they get from dirty needles, and from the rubbish that people mix with the heroin to make it go further, that messes up their circulation. Okay, the heroin itself in normal doses, you can carry on doing it till you're 80. I mean, various famous writers have done so. Okay, smoking. What's the normal dose of cigarettes? The normal smoker smokes a pack a day, generally about 20 a day, and about half those normal regular smokers will die from a smoking-related illness. It's really that bad. Okay, so you're a smoker and you want to stop doing that. You want to stop killing yourself, and your partner's not prepared to help you. Not even prepared to help you by just popping outside to have their cig. Pop outside onto the balcony or at the back door or a garden if you've got a garden. What does that say about your situation in your life? It's not very good. So you've got to think about that. Again, doesn't mean that you shouldn't stop smoking, but it might mean that you need to make other changes in your life, or that other changes are inevitable. Okay. So what can you do? What can you do to help yourself before you actually quit smoking? Before the big day, in the run up to the big day. Yeah, if you were doing a marathon or whatever, you wouldn't just stumble out of the pub and start running, would you? You would train, you would prepare. Yeah. So 4 things that you can do. 1, and some of them might sound really trivial, but where do you keep your cigarettes? Do you keep them on the coffee table in your living room? Do you keep them in the glove box in your car? Wherever you put them somewhere else. Okay? If you keep them in your left-hand pocket, put them in your right-hand pocket, and so on. Secondly, do you smoke with your left hand or your right hand? Whichever it is, switch to the other hand. Okay? And your third thing is, do you normally smoke like whilst you drink a cup of coffee? Do you normally smoke when you're on a long phone call? Disconnect those activities from smoking. So have the cig and then make the phone call, or make the phone call and then have the cig. Yeah? Or drink the coffee, then the cigarette, or cigarette, then the coffee. Not both together at the same time. Now the reason for all those first 3 pieces of advice is because it starts to break down the element of smoking that is just a habit. okay? Because the 40-a-day smoker who actually gives up easily like that, that's because almost all those cigarettes were just habit, okay? People that smoke that amount, often they don't even smoke after the cigarette. It's just there in the ashtray, and the smoke's just going up into the air for everybody else to breathe. Yeah, that person, there might only be 5 cigarettes a day that they really, really appreciate. The rest of it is just kind of automated. They hardly know they're doing it. When you see smokers walking along, sometimes you, it's like they hardly know they've got a cigarette in their hand. Yeah, I saw a woman once patting a kid on the head, and she actually had a cig between her fingers, and the ash was falling onto the poor kid's head. So she didn't even seem to know that there was a cigarette in her hand. So it's to break down that habitual component. And the fourth and final thing is something I mentioned earlier, which is learn to breathe. That might sound silly. Surely we all know how to breathe, otherwise we'd be dead. A lot of people don't know how to breathe properly, okay? So, and that's why one big reason why smoking helps them to relax, helps them to calm down, helps to relieve their rage, because they breathe in and then they slowly breathe out. Breathe in. Slowly breathe out. Okay. For people who smoke weed, the whole ritual of preparing the spliff as well, because it's a ritual. It's something that you're doing with your hands. Yeah, that takes a bit of care. Again, that helps them to calm down. So learn to replace that breathing ritual with something else. You don't need the cigarette to breathe out slowly. So just start with for 1 minute once a day. Just put everything down, switch off the television, because that winds people up, and just feel your own breathing. Just feel the air going in. You feel it cooler as it's going in, warmer as it's going out. Feel your chest rising as the air goes in and dropping back as the air goes out. If you put one hand on your stomach area and one hand on your chest, you want to feel the stomach expand as you breathe in first, and then the chest. And then breathe out again, okay? Because the best breathing is from lower down in your lungs, okay? And just practice that for 1 minute once a day. And when that gets easy, go for 3 minutes or 5 minutes once a day. And the trick is to get it so habitual that it's what you naturally do when something has wound you up. Yeah, when you're in a queue and somebody ahead of you is wasting time, when you've just heard the announcement that your train is half an hour late, when somebody at work has said or done something especially stupid, this should be your first automatic reaction, is to slow your breathing and calm down. Okay, and I can assure you from personal experience, this is something you can learn to do in just about any situation, including situations in which you're in physical danger, okay? Because you're always breathing. So it's just about breathing in a slightly different way. That will be a very good preparation for you. And again, it will just do away with the number one excuse for smoking, which is that, oh yeah, it helps me to relax. So there's a few thoughts about smoking. Some of them might sound a bit negative. Let me emphasize, in almost all cases, and unless sadly you've left it so far that smoking is basically already giving you an incurable illness from which you're already dying, even then, by all means, quit smoking if you want to. But the vast majority of smokers are not yet terminally ill with a terminal diagnosis. So everyone should definitely stop smoking. Everyone should join the, you know, was it 97% of people who, no, 87% of people who don't smoke. But how to do it requires a bit of thought and planning. So if you found this video interesting, share it with your friends by all means. Bookmark my YouTube channel. Go to my website phobiahelp.net and join my mailing list. And in the meantime, have a good day and stay healthy.